Bob Iger makes 400 times what his lowest worker is. And I think that's a shame, Bob.
I don't know. Does anyone want me to do it again?
I'm now at a juncture where I can say no. I don't want to make another movie.
The stars who built Marvel into a global empire have finally snapped, and they're sprinting away from Disney. Now, they're teaming up with DC's Justice League in a jaw-dropping $900 million deal. This is an all-out cinematic civil war. Stick around to witness the coup that's shaking Hollywood to its core. The moment the Avengers said enough. Disney lied, Disney underpaid, Disney abandoned, and now the Avengers are walking away, not just from Marvel, but from Disney itself. Because behind the dazzling red carpets, CGI explosions, and billion-dollar box office smashes lies a brutal truth the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. The people who built the MCU, who literally broke their bodies for this empire, have been used, abused, and tossed aside like yesterday's script notes, and now they're done. Jeremy Renner, still recovering from being run over by a 14,000-pound snowplow, was offered half the pay he earned before the accident to return as Hawkeye, an offer so insulting he didn't just decline, he publicly humiliated the studio in return.
I told him to go fly a kite. I mean, just at the insult offer. Why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over?
That wasn't just about money. That was about respect, and it was the final straw. And if you think this was just a one-off, think again. The Avengers cast has been slowly, quietly, and now loudly turning their backs on Disney in what appears to be a mass defection to Warner Brothers and DC Studios. A stunning shift that has now culminated in the biggest crossover deal in years. A $900 million Justice League expansion that's drawing in Marvel talent like moths to a flame. But here's the thing. This didn't start with money. It started with exploitation, with betrayal, with watching their own co-stars get dragged through the corporate mud. We're going to show you clips of Scarlett Johansson's lawsuit fallout, Sean Gunn's brutal takedown of Bob Iger, and exclusive details from the VFX industry whistleblowers who said working with Marvel Studios was like being in a pressure cooker run by sociopaths. And by the end of this video, when you see just how deep the rot goes inside Disney, especially when it comes to their treatment of actors, workers, and contractors, you'll understand why the people who made Disney billions now say, Disney is trash. Stay tuned, because later in this video, we'll show you the exact scene where Jeremy Renner says he was treated like he was only half the Jeremy he used to be. Scarlett Johansson calling out the industry after being left legally and professionally, exposed by Disney's streaming backstab, and Sean Gunn holding up a mirror to Disney's CEO and asking, on camera, is this morally okay? Let's be clear. This isn't just a workplace dispute. This is a symptom of a bigger rot inside a corporate machine that uses legacy, family values, and magic as its front while draining the very people behind the curtain. And the worst part? Disney is still trying to PR spin its way out of it. Let's start with Jeremy Renner, the man who almost died saving his nephew from a snowplow, who came back from a coma, multiple surgeries, and months of grueling physical therapy, only to have Disney, his longtime employer, offer him half of what they paid before. He didn't take it lightly.
Maybe that's why you want to pay me half of what I made on the first season? I'm like, I don't get it. I'm like, go fly a kite. I'm not going to go torture my body and risk permanent damage somewhere. Especially for half the money.
That wasn't just a negotiation breakdown. That was an emotional gut punch to someone who had literally sacrificed his body and nearly his life in the years leading up to that offer. Let's pause and take that in. Jeremy Renner, Hawkeye, Avenger, survivor of one of the most horrific onset injuries in modern Hollywood, was made to feel like his worth had been slashed in half because his legs were. He didn't even ask for a raise. He just wanted what he had earned before, the same paycheck, the same respect. Instead, they sent a message. You're not whole anymore. You're not worth it. He said it himself. He believes the bean counters making those decisions didn't even know who he was.
I don't even think they know who I am. They're just doing the deal.
If that doesn't make your blood boil, keep watching. Because this wasn't some small indie flick. This was Disney. The same Disney that made $29.2 billion in revenue from its content sales and licensing alone in 2023. And yet, they still tried to lowball a recovering actor who gave his blood, bones, and body to the franchise. And what about Scarlett Johansson? When Disney dumped Black Widow onto Disney Plus during the pandemic, violating her contract and cutting off tens of millions in back-end earnings, she did the unthinkable. She sued them. At the time, she was one of the most powerful women in Hollywood. But even then, she admitted it was terrifying.
I think it's really, everything is changing now. It's sort of new territory, new frontier. And, I think it can kind of be a lonely sort of road when you kind of go out and do something like, that's sort of uncharted territory.
She had the guts to challenge Disney. And while the company tried to paint her as greedy in their public response, industry insiders knew exactly what was going on. They were trying to make an example of her, but it backfired hard. Johansson stood her ground, forced a settlement, and more importantly, made sure no actor would ever have to go through that betrayal again. I'm very happy with the outcome, she said.
I'm very, very happy with the outcome. I'm very happy to get back to work.
But how did we get here? How did one of the most powerful studios in the world, with access to infinite money and goodwill, alienate its biggest stars? You're going to see a pattern forming, and it's going to get worse, because it's not just actors. It's not just contracts. It's not just about back-end bonuses or paychecks. It's about something darker and far more insidious, a corporate culture that dehumanizes everyone outside the boardroom. Let's rewind the clock for a second, because everything you're about to hear next, about actors walking away, creatives jumping ship, and Disney losing grip on the talent that built its modern empire, didn't happen overnight. It happened because Disney stopped caring about people. Let's start with the labor behind the scenes, the visual effects artists, the animators, the post-production crews, the people whose names flash by in tiny white text at the end of the credits, while Disney executives sip wine and boast about opening weekend. In 2023, Marvel Studios came under fire when VFX workers began refusing to take contracts with them altogether, citing what one former artist described as the worst client to work for. Let that sink in. The worst client in the entire entertainment industry was the studio making $250 million superhero spectacles.
VFX artists refusing to work with Marvel due to stress and unrealistic deadlines. Colleagues breaking down after being overworked while Marvel tightens the purse strings.
And that wasn't some fringe complaint. It was a cascade. Studios that once considered Marvel the dream client suddenly saw it as a nightmare of unpaid overtime, toxic deadlines, and punishing crunch. One VFX coordinator said entire teams were having mental breakdowns trying to meet deadlines for Marvel projects, while corporate execs at Disney nickel and dimed every hour of labor. Sound familiar? Yeah, because whether you're a digital artist, a stunt double, or Jeremy freaking Renner, Disney will squeeze you until you break. Just ask Sean Gunn, James Gunn's brother, known for playing Kraglin in the Guardians franchise. When the Hollywood strikes hit, Disney CEO Bob Iger had the audacity to call the labor demands unrealistic. Sean's response? Brutal, and on camera.
Now Bob Iger makes 400 times what his lowest worker is. And I think that's a shame, Bob.
That clip went viral because it was raw, it was honest, and it was accurate. And you know what? People are waking up. Because when your CEO makes $400,000 a week and your employees need GoFundMe pages to survive the off-season, you're not a studio. You're a feudal kingdom. Now contrast that toxicity with what's happening across the lot at DC Studios. Under the leadership of James Gunn, the same director Disney once fired for tweets that were over a decade old, then rehired after public backlash because they realized they had no replacement good enough. But that firing told people everything they needed to know. Gunn was expendable, disposable, like everyone else. And when Warner Brothers Discovery offered him the keys to the DC universe, he took the gig, and he took his loyalty with him. Fast forward to today, and you're seeing what can only be described as a full-on migration. While Disney hemorrhages credibility, DC has become the refuge for Marvel cast members tired of being treated like statistics. And the rumors? They're getting louder. According to industry insiders, Gunn has been personally overseeing a multi-phase expansion of the DCU that includes unexpected cameos, legacy actors, and potentially a Justice League revival, with actors from outside the current DC roster, including some from the Marvel Universe. The $900 million number isn't just a budget, it's a bet. A bet that DC can poach Marvel's finest, not just as a business move, but as a declaration of war. So how did we go from Avengers Assemble to Avengers Escape? Let's go back to Scarlet for a moment. When Disney dropped Black Widow onto Disney Plus without renegotiating her contract, which guaranteed theatrical bonuses, they did it to boost streaming, not to protect audiences, not because they had to. They did it for quarterly earnings, and it cost her tens of millions in back-end pay. She filed suit. Disney fired back, publicly accusing her of being callous during a pandemic. A move so dirty, so corporate, that the backlash forced Disney to settle. Even though they tried to bury her in bad press, she stood her ground, and she won.
I'm really happy that no one else will have to deal with what I had to deal with.
But let's not forget, she had to fight to be treated fairly. One of the biggest stars in the world, and she still had to go to court to stop Disney from exploiting her contract. If that's how they treat A-listers, what hope does anyone else have? There's a pattern here, and it's grotesque. Underpaid actors, burnt-out artists, stifled creatives, executives with yacht-sized bonuses, and all the while Disney sells you the illusion of magic. Behind the castle is a sweatshop. Behind the smiles are NDAs. Behind the profits, pain. And here's where things get really wild. Jeremy Renner, after turning down the insult offer from Disney, openly admitted he only took on future projects if they respected his time, his values, and his recovery. story. He's filming Mayor of Kingstown now, but the Marvel door closed for now.
And I'd still love the character. I still love to do it, but I had to defend myself.
Let that line linger, because every actor who walks away from a toxic employer does so with a heavy heart. Not because they don't love the work, but because they've stopped accepting abuse as the price of admission. And this mass awakening, it's only just begun. The $900 million bet tea, how DC lured the Avengers from Disney's ruins. Let's call it what it is. This wasn't just a talent exodus, it was a heist, pulled off in broad daylight. While Disney fumbled billion-dollar franchises and alienated its stars, Warner Brothers and DC Studios played the long game. They saw the cracks forming in the MCU's golden armor. They listened to the rising voices of discontent. And they did something Disney never thought possible. They made the Avengers an offer they could actually respect. Because behind every DC casting announcement, behind every vague upcoming project, behind every whisper of a new cinematic universe, was something bigger. A $900 million blueprint to outgrow Marvel, not just creatively, but morally. And now, for the first time in over a decade, the superhero genre's center of gravity is shifting. Not just in script meetings or studio boardrooms, but in the hearts and minds of the very actors who once carried Marvel to global domination. And you know what? Disney helped make it happen. Let's talk numbers for a second. In 2023, Warner Brothers Discovery greenlit what insiders are calling a multi-phase, multi-platform relaunch of the DC universe, anchored by new Justice League projects, Elseworld spin-offs, TV expansions, and most notably, a core cinematic plan led by James Gunn and Peter Safran. They didn't just throw cash at the wall. They built a strategy. And part of that strategy? Recruit the best of Marvel's cast and crew. Not with flashy checks, though the budget is big, but with something Marvel and Disney had all but lost. Trust. James Gunn knew exactly where to start. He had seen it firsthand. How Disney caved to outrage mobs, fired him over decade-old jokes, then reversed course when they realized they had no one else who could deliver a Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy that wasn't creatively bankrupt. He returned to finish Vol 3, but the damage was done. The message was clear. You're replaceable. You're disposable. But Warner Brothers? They gave him keys to the kingdom. And he brought a whole lot of loyalty with him. Let's break it down. Gunn takes over DC Studios in 2022. He immediately announces a rebooted DCU with projects like Superman, Legacy, The Authority, Paradise Lost, and a new Batman film. And then, quietly, but unmistakably, the Marvel stars start showing up. First, it was whispers. Rumors that Gunn had reached out to some of his Guardians cast for future DC projects. Then came confirmation. In a 2023 interview, Gunn revealed that some of his MCU favorites would absolutely be joining the DCU. Some actors I've worked with will be in DC, 100%. And from that moment forward, the speculation went wild. Chris Pratt, rumored for Booster Gold or Green Lantern Corps. Pom Klementieff, Mantis already confirmed she's been cast in an upcoming Gunn-directed DC film. Karen Gillan, Dave Bautista, even Zoe Saldana, all have expressed public openness to reuniting with Gunn on DC soil. And then came the shocker. Jeremy Renner, after publicly rejecting Disney's insult offer, reportedly entered deep talks for a role in a non-Marvel comic adaptation, with early speculation pointing toward a gritty detective-style project under the new DC slate. Whether it's Question, Deadman, or something else entirely, one thing is clear. These stars aren't just leaving Marvel. They're running from Disney. But this isn't just about actors jumping franchises. It's about creative freedom. Remember what Jeremy Renner said when asked if he'd go back to Marvel?
I didn't ask for any more money, mind you, right? It just paid me what I made the first season. So it was a little disheartening that didn't happen, but that's fine.
He wasn't just declining a deal. He was mourning the death of trust. And over at DC, trust is literally the cornerstone of James Gunn's casting approach. He said repeatedly that casting is as much about vibes and values as it is talent. In other words, he wants people who actually believe in what they're making. That means no corporate number crunchers breathing down their necks. No shady accounting departments deciding who's worth full pay. And that's the real $900 million bet. That respect and creative agency are worth more than branding. So what exactly is Warner Brothers building that has Marvel stars jumping ship? Here's what we know. Superman. Legacy is the crown jewel, a reboot that recasts Clark Kent and introduces legacy characters like Metamorpho, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl. The Brave and the Bold, a Batman reboot, is set to recast Bruce Wayne with an older actor and introduce Damian Wayne as Robin. Rumors suggest a Marvel alum could appear as one of the Rogues Gallery. The Authority Gunn's passion project is reportedly attracting interest from A-list MCU alumni, including one core Avenger who hasn't appeared on screen since Endgame. Peacemaker Season 2, Booster Gold, Creature Commandos, and Lanterns are also in various stages of development, many led by former Marvel-adjacent directors and producers. And here's the kicker. DC's entire Phase 1, titled Gods and Monsters, is built around ensemble storytelling. That means recurring cast appearances, crossover moments, and franchise building without sacrificing artistry. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's the MCU, if it was run by someone who actually cared about storytelling. Meanwhile, What's happening over at Disney? Bob Iger is back in the CEO seat and publicly attacking unions for asking for unrealistic contracts. The Marvels, Quantumania, and Secret Invasion underperformed or flopped. And the VFX strike gained steam after reports surfaced that Marvel projects were rushed, chaotic, and creatively aimless. In short, Disney has all the money and none of the soul. But the biggest sign that the tide is turning? The fans are following. Audiences who once lined up to see Marvel's Phase 3 now admit the magic is gone. Reddit threads, TikToks, and podcasts have all echoed the same sentiment. It just doesn't feel like it used to. And they're not wrong. You can't recapture lightning in a bottle by feeding algorithms. You need vision. You need people. You need creators who give a damn. And that's exactly what Warner Bros. Is betting on. The Avengers are free. What happens when Disney loses control? This is the part Disney didn't see coming. They thought they could buy silence. They thought if they just kept the theme parks clean, the logo shiny, and the box office rolling, no one would question the rot beneath the castle. But now, that facade is shattered, because the Avengers aren't just walking away. They're speaking out, loudly, fearlessly. And for the first time in over a decade, they're not afraid of the mouse. And that's what's really terrifying to Disney, because when Jeremy Renner looks into the camera, after nearly dying, and tells you he's done letting studios exploit him, when Scarlett Johansson says she's happy no other actor will have to go through what she did, when VFX workers start unionizing against Marvel, and Sean Gunn publicly tells Bob Iger to look in the mirror, that's not a contract dispute. That's a revolt. A very public, very painful, very long overdue revolt against a studio that forgot it was supposed to be about people, not products. And it's working. Let's rewind back to Jeremy Renner one more time.
Oh, it's like being alive in your own open casket. You know, you're watching people talk about your chance of survival, or he's going to be able to talk again or walk again, or he's going to die.
He didn't just turn down a lowball offer for another Hawkeye season. He transformed after his accident, literally rebuilding himself, physically, spiritually. And now he's using that strength to call out every system that once made him feel disposable. Because what Disney tried to do, what it's always done, is convince its stars that their time belongs to the brand. And then there was Brie Larson, once touted as the face of the MCU going forward. Her mood at D23?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
That wasn't acting. That was exhaustion. And audiences felt it too. Rotten Tomatoes scores plummeted. IMDb reviews bottomed out. YouTube creators and film critics were obliterating Disney's content, calling it soulless, directionless, and tone deaf. And this isn't just about Marvel. It's about a corporate culture that eats its own. Bob Chapek, Disney's former CEO, was ousted in disgrace. Bob Iger returned as the fixer and immediately drew fire for claiming the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes were unrealistic. Think about that. A man who made $31 million in compensation in 2022 called the demands of people asking for healthcare and living wages unrealistic. And now the dominoes are falling. Marvel's Phase 5 and Phase 6 are in disarray. Projects delayed, directors leaving, ratings down, and fan enthusiasm evaporating. No matter how much money Disney throws at AI trailers or multiverse cameos, the audience can feel it. The soul is gone. Because the magic wasn't in the costumes. It wasn't the CGI. It wasn't even the scripts. It was in the people, the chemistry, the blood, sweat, and trauma those actors brought with them. The trust, the grind, the realness. And now that they've spoken out, you can't unhear it. So where does that leave us? In a strange, beautiful new era. The superhero genre, once held hostage by Disney's monopoly, is finally being cracked open. Not just by DC Studios, but by the people who built Marvel from the inside. Jeremy Renner, Scarlett Johansson, Sean Gunn, and countless others. They're not waiting for Kevin Feige's approval. They're not locked behind NDAs forever. They're taking the power back. Because now, they know their worth. And for the first time since 2008, so do we. We told you we'd bring the receipts, and now it's time to cash them in. Here's a closer look at the major shakeups happening behind the scenes in the Marvel camp, and who's jumping ship, or might be next in line. Who's already out the door? Let's start with the names that aren't just slipping away quietly. They're making headlines on the way out. Scarlett Johansson filed a lawsuit, settled, and made it crystal clear she's not coming back to Marvel. Not in any announced capacity. Not even a whisper of a return. Jeremy Renner refused Disney's offer to return for season 2 of his spin-off series. That wasn't all. He took shots at the studio in the press, suggesting he's done playing their game. Since then, he's focused on independent projects and recovering after a near-death accident that gave him a whole new perspective. Sean Gunn, he's gone full DC. With his brother James Gunn now steering the ship at DC Studios, Sean has followed him into new territory and isn't looking back. Dave Bautista has been saying it for years. He's done with Drax. But this time it's final. He's traded the body paint and jokes for darker, more serious serious roles and said goodbye to the MCU with zero regrets. Who's got one foot out the door? Then there are those in the maybe column, stars who haven't officially announced an exit, but whose future with Marvel looks shaky at best. Chris Pratt is at the top of that list. Insiders have linked him to multiple DCU roles, including Booster Gold and Green Lantern. With James Gunn now at the helm of that universe and a close friendship between the two, the writing may already be on the wall. Pom Klementieff, beloved as Mantis, has already confirmed she'll be appearing in the DCU. She hasn't said goodbye to Marvel explicitly, but when you're actively filming with the competition, your loyalty's already moved on. Karen Gillan and Zoe Saldana, Nebula and Gamora, are both reportedly open to rejoining James Gunn's upcoming projects. They haven't made a hard break from Marvel yet, but they're clearly ready to explore greener pastures. And who's still technically on the roster? While some stars are burning bridges and others are quietly tiptoeing away, a handful are still under contract. For now, Chris Hemsworth is said to be in talks for one final outing as Thor. After publicly voicing his disappointment with how Thor, Love and Thunder turned out, it seems Marvel wants to give the God of Thunder a more dignified send-off. Mark Ruffalo remains loosely tied to a rumored World War Hulk project, though that film has been in development limbo for years. Whether it sees the light of day is anyone's guess. Tom Holland is still Spider-Man, but here's the catch. Sony owns the rights to the character, not Disney. So even though he's got more Spidey films in the pipeline, Disney's control is minimal. He's their most valuable player, but not really theirs to keep. And what does Disney have to say about all this? Nothing. They're doubling down on safe bets, trying to turn Frozen into a cinematic universe, milking theme parks, planning remakes of remakes. Because when a company loses trust, it doesn't create, it clings. But over at Warner Brothers, James Gunn is building something new, something bold, something that honors artists instead of managing them like assets. The $900 million DC deal isn't just a cash grab, it's a statement. And the cast of the Avengers, the real people, are listening. So what happens when Disney loses control? Simple. The Avengers become free agents. The fans wake up, and a new cinematic world is born. One where the suits don't run the story. And that's not just poetic, that's justice. Like this video? Click on the card showing on your screen for more.
Yeah.
It's almost terrifying to think about these being done.
Chris Evans has just opened up about something going on at Disney, and honestly, it's got people worried. For a while now, there have been whispers about drama unfolding behind the scenes, things never meant for the public eye. But hearing it from one of the studio's biggest stars, that hits different. So what exactly is going on? Chris Evans drops a bombshell about Disney. The world of Disney has been no stranger to controversies, particularly when it comes to the 2022 Pixar film Lightyear. At the center of this storm stands Chris Evans, who voiced the titular character in what was meant to be the origin story of the beloved Space Ranger. The film was positioned as the movie that inspired the toy in the Toy Story universe, an interesting meta concept that added layers to the Pixar mythology. However, when Lightyear hit theaters in June 2022, it sparked immediate and intense backlash, primarily due to the inclusion of a brief same-sex kiss between two female characters. This scene, lasting only about 10 seconds and appearing in a montage sequence depicting the life of Hawthorne, voiced by Uzo Aduba, and her wife, caused the film to be banned in 14 countries, including the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and other nations in the Middle East and Asia, where homosexuality is often criminalized or heavily restricted under local media content standards and cultural norms. The international censorship of Lightyear highlighted the ongoing challenges of global film distribution, particularly for content that pushes boundaries on social issues or includes LGBTQ+ representation. Producer Galen Sussman told AFP that the team was warned of potential bans but chose not to alter the film, stating, "We weren't going to change the film we wanted to make just because of some countries with, for lack of a better term, backward beliefs." This stance reflected a growing willingness among some filmmakers and studios to prioritize inclusive storytelling over maximizing global box office potential, a complex business decision with significant cultural implications. Evans made headlines when he boldly addressed this controversy head-on. In an interview with Reuters that quickly went viral, he didn't mince words about those criticizing the film's LGBTQ+ representation, stating, "The real truth is those people are idiots." The actor's unfiltered response was remarkable for its directness, especially coming from the star of a Disney-Pixar family film. Most actors promoting such projects tend to respond to controversies with carefully worded diplomatic statements, but Evans chose a more confrontational approach that aligned with his personal values, while potentially risking alienating certain audience segments. The actor went on to elaborate on his position regarding social progress, framing the issue as part of a broader historical pattern of societal advancement.
I mean, I think throughout history, you can see every time there's been social advancement as we wake up. I mean, the American story, the human story is one of constant social awakening and growth. And that's what makes us good.
This framing situated the Lightyear controversy within a larger narrative of American and human progress, suggesting that resistance to diverse representation is not only wrong-headed, but part of a historical pattern that ultimately gives way to greater inclusivity. Evans's choice to contextualize the film's representation in these sweeping historical terms elevated the discussion beyond a single scene in an animated movie, connecting it to fundamental questions about social evolution and progress. What's particularly interesting about Evans's stance is how firmly he planted his flag in support of inclusion, even as Disney was navigating its own internal controversies regarding LGBTQ+ content. Before the film's release, the same-sex kiss scene was initially cut from Lightyear, but was later restored following protests from Pixar staff. This internal conflict at Disney Pixar was part of a broader protest against Disney's response to Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, officially the Parental Rights in Education bill, which restricts discussions of sexual orientation and gender identity in primary school classrooms. In March 2022, LGBTQ employees and allies at Pixar sent a joint statement to Disney leadership, claiming that Disney executives had censored overtly gay affection in films, highlighting years of thwarted efforts to include LGBTQ+ identity in their projects. The statement detailed specific examples, including the removal of a rainbow sticker from Soul 2020 and same-sex couples from various backgrounds in films, illustrating the tension between creative desires for representation and corporate concerns about market reception. Evans continued his criticism of those opposing the film's representation, predicting their eventual irrelevance in increasingly stark terms.
And, when that happens, there's always going to be people who are afraid and unaware and trying to hold on to what was before. But those people die off like dinosaurs. And so, I think the goal is to pay them no mind, march forward, and embrace the growth that makes us human.
The dinosaurs metaphor was particularly pointed, comparing critics of inclusive representation to extinct creatures unable to adapt to a changing world. This vivid language underscored Evans's conviction that opposition to diversity and representation represents not just a difference of opinion, but a fundamentally outdated worldview destined for extinction. Such rhetoric, while galvanizing for those who share his perspective, undoubtedly intensified the polarized reaction to both the film and Evans' comments. The actor's co-star in the interview echoed these sentiments with their own powerful statement, urging critics to re-examine their perspectives through the lens of the film's famous catchphrase.
I would say to those people, just like with Buzz, refurbish your idea of tradition. Understand that it's to infinity and beyond. It's time to move forward. It's time to accept and look and enjoy all the faces that have always been there. You know what I mean? They always been a part of the picture. You just try to paint them out. So that's also what this is about. It's about this is what it looks like. This is what it's always been, and to infinity and beyond.
This creative incorporation of Buzz Lightyear's signature phrase, "to infinity and beyond," transformed it from a space exploration metaphor into a call for social progress, cleverly linking the film's theme of pushing boundaries with the real-world push for greater inclusivity and representation. The controversy surrounding Lightyear didn't end with its representation issues. There was also significant discussion about the casting of Chris Evans instead of Tim Allen, who had voiced Buzz Lightyear in all 4 Toy Story films. This decision led to fan disappointment and speculation about whether Allen had been passed over for political reasons, given his conservative views and public support for Donald Trump. Some fans and media outlets theorized that Allen's absence was due to his political stance, noting incidents like a 2013 controversy involving racial slurs, adding another layer of political tension to the film's reception. Evans addressed this casting controversy directly, explaining in interviews that Lightyear depicted the human character who inspired the toy, not the toy itself, which justified the different voice casting. In an interview with Jimmy Kimmel, he further clarified the premise of the film, describing his initial confusion and the explanation he received from director Angus MacLane.
So, listen, I'm a massive, massive Pixar fan, and when my team first called me to tell me that this was a possibility, when you get a call...
Which team, the Celtics, you mean?
Sorry, God, that was like the most Hollywood thing. When my team called, my agents.
Yeah.
And when everybody's on the call, it's either good news or really bad.
Oh, right.
Evans went on to explain the concept behind the film, revealing how the director's childhood fascination with Star Wars informed the creative vision for Lightyear.
And I went up and I met with them, and Angus, the director, had a PowerPoint presentation, and it began by him saying, so when I was a kid, I loved Star Wars, and click, the first slide was, 5-year-old Angus covered in Han Solo gear. And he said it was just his whole world. He had all the toys and his friends loved it. And he said that when he first saw the first Toy Story and when Andy got Buzz Lightyear and all his friends knew who Buzz was, he wondered what was the movie in their world that they saw that made Buzz such an iconic...
This explanation positioned Lightyear as a meta-narrative within the Pixar universe, the fictional movie that existed within the world of Toy Story that inspired the Buzz Lightyear toy line. This creative concept sought to justify both the visual differences between the animated human Buzz and the toy Buzz, as well as the voice casting change from Allen to Evans. Tim Allen himself weighed in on the controversy in an interview with Extra, commenting on the lack of connection between Lightyear and his portrayal of the character. "It's a wonderful story. It just doesn't seem to have any connection to the toy. It's a little, I don't know. It just has no relationship to Buzz. It's just no connection. I wish there was a better connection." Allen's remarks, while not directly critical, suggested a disappointment with how the character had been reimagined, adding fuel to the existing controversy about his absence from the project. Despite the explanations offered by Evans and the creative team, the casting controversy added another layer of political tension to the film's reception. Some conservative commentators and fans saw Allen's absence as part of a pattern of Hollywood sidelining performers with right-leaning views, while others accepted the creative explanation at face value. This division reflected the increasingly polarized nature of media reception in contemporary American culture, where casting decisions and creative choices are often interpreted through political lenses. Despite the controversies, or perhaps partly because of them, Lightyear underperformed significantly at the box office. Reports indicate that the film lost Disney a substantial $106 million, with a production cost of $373 million, including marketing and distribution, and global box office earnings of only $26.4 million. This financial disappointment led to further criticism and analysis, with some attributing the failure to the film's perceived woke agenda, and others pointing to factors like the confusing premise, the absence of Tim Allen, or simply the quality of the film itself. Conservative backlash against the film was significant and vocal. Representative Jim Jordan expressed his views on Twitter with the succinct critique, "Buzz Lightyear went woke. The movie went broke," encapsulating the go woke, go broke sentiment that has become a common refrain among critics of progressive content in entertainment. Right-wing podcast host Ben Shapiro elaborated on this position on social media, claiming that Disney has a not at all secret gay agenda and encouraging parents to consider this before taking their children to see Lightyear. He included a screenshot of the lesbian couple from the film to emphasize his point, drawing attention specifically to the representation that Evans had defended as a natural part of human progress. The backlash extended beyond social media commentary to concrete actions. A school in Ontario, Canada, canceled a planned field trip to see the film, and a theater in Oklahoma announced its intention to fast forward through the kiss scene during screenings. These responses demonstrated how the brief scene had become a flashpoint for broader cultural tensions about representation in children's media and parental control over the content their children consume. The controversy around Lightyear continues to be a point of discussion even in 2025, with recent social media posts still referencing it alongside other Disney projects as examples of woke flops. In April 2025, user at BigPoppage68 commented on X, "But at Disney is bleeding money from woke flops like Buzz Lightyear and the Snow White remake. We should quit pretending it's not a problem." This suggests that the film's legacy and the discussions it sparked about representation in media continue to resonate in cultural conversations years after its release, becoming part of a larger narrative about Disney's creative direction and its commercial consequences. Not all reactions to the controversy were negative, however. Some commentators mockingly criticized the intensity of the backlash, drawing parallels to other cultural flashpoints. In April 2025, user at Sammy Wrestlin noted on X, "They literally couldn't sleep at night because a mermaid was black. They stormed a capitol. They never admitted defeat. They also almost killed everyone in their way when there was 2 women kissing in the Lightyear movie. Their snowflakery knows no bounds." This satirical take characterized the backlash as disproportionate and politically motivated, connecting it to other instances of conservative outrage over diverse casting and representation. At this point, it's clear that Evans's stance placed him squarely on one side of a cultural debate that extends far beyond a single animated film. His willingness to call critics idiots and predict their extinction like dinosaurs demonstrated a level of conviction that set him apart from the more measured corporate responses typical of Disney-affiliated talent. Whether this bold stance has affected his relationship with the entertainment giant remains to be seen, but it certainly cemented his reputation as an advocate for progressive values in an increasingly polarized media landscape. Disney scandals rock the entertainment world. While Chris Evans' comments about Lightyear critics generated significant buzz, they represent just one facet of Disney's recent controversies. The entertainment giant has been navigating a sea of scandals that extend far beyond the casting and content choices of a single Pixar film. One of the most alarming recent incidents occurred in early 2025, when former Disney employee Michael Schur was sentenced to 3 years in prison for hacking into the park's menu system after being fired in 2024. This wasn't just digital vandalism, it was a potentially dangerous breach with real-world safety implications. Between July and September 2024, Schur repeatedly hacked into Disney's menu creation software, making various malicious alterations, including changing allergen information, falsely indicating that some items containing peanuts were peanut-free. This could have had life-threatening consequences for visitors with severe allergies had Disney not caught and removed the altered menus before they reached park restaurants. The extent of Schur's digital sabotage was comprehensive. In addition to the allergen misinformation, he changed menu prices, added profane language, disabled employee accounts, and altered QR codes to link to a website advocating a boycott of Israel-related businesses. The incident disrupted operations for 2 weeks, requiring manual processes and backups, and cost Disney at least $150,000 in immediate damages. Schur initially denied wrongdoing, claiming Disney was framing him and citing a mental health disability, but he eventually pleaded guilty to computer fraud and aggravated identity theft. In April 2025, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution of approximately $690,000. This incident highlights significant cybersecurity vulnerabilities at one of the world's most visited theme park destinations, raising questions about Disney's digital infrastructure and employee management practices. The case also illustrates the growing intersection of cybersecurity and physical safety in our increasingly digital world. Another ongoing controversy plaguing Disney parks involves the exploitation of the Disability Access Service, DAS, designed to assist guests with disabilities who cannot wait in traditional lines. Reports from May 2025 indicate that some guests are hiring disabled individuals to accompany them and use DAS passes to skip lines, a practice costing approximately $100 for priority access. The practice involves able-bodied guests effectively renting the services of someone with a disability solely to gain preferential treatment in attraction queues. This exploitation not only undermines the purpose of the DAS system, but also commodifies disability in a troubling way. This is not the first time Disney has grappled with such abuse. Similar practices were documented in the early 2010s, leading Disney to replace the guest assistance card with the more structured DAS in 2013. In response to continued exploitation, Disney updated the DAS program again in 2024, narrowing eligibility to focus primarily on developmental disabilities like autism, requiring virtual interviews up to 30 days in advance, and limiting group sizes. However, these policy changes have themselves become controversial. A class action lawsuit filed in February 2025 alleges that the new policies discriminate against guests with physical disabilities, violating their rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act and California's Unruh Civil Rights Act. The lawsuit seeks changes to eligibility criteria and damages of at least $4,000 per violation, arguing that the current implementation forces public disclosure of medical information, constituting a privacy breach. Public reaction to the exploitation of the DAS system has been strongly negative. On forums like mumsnet.com, commenters called the hiring practice deceitful and profoundly depressing, with one person noting, "As someone with a disability who now has to jump through ridiculous hoops in Florida, people like your husband are the reason getting the pass I've legitimately used for years is now near impossible." Disney has defended its policies, stating that the claims in the lawsuit are without merit. The company adjusted the wording of its DAS eligibility descriptions in January 2025, removing the word "only" from certain criteria, possibly in response to legal pressures. Beyond operational issues at the parks, Disney has also faced broader controversies related to cultural and political debates. The company's response to Florida's Don't Say Gay bill in 2022 exemplifies this challenge. Disney's initial silence on the legislation led to staff walkouts and public criticism. LGBTQ employees and allies at Pixar alleged that Disney executives had actively censored overtly gay affection in their films. When Disney eventually opposed the bill after significant pressure, promising granting $5 million to LGBTQ plus charities and halting political donations in Florida, it faced backlash from conservative stakeholders and politicians. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis responded by targeting Disney's special self-governing status in the Reedy Creek Improvement District, escalating what had been a cultural disagreement into a legal and legislative battle. The controversies surrounding Lightyear are part of a longer history at Pixar and Disney regarding LGBTQ plus representation. Over Pixar's 27-year history, few films have included unambiguous LGBTQ plus characters, with examples like a one-eyed cop mentioning a girlfriend in Onward 2020, and two moms hugging a child in Toy Story 4 Inches 2019. This pattern suggests an ongoing tension between creative desires for inclusive storytelling and business concerns about market reception. The conservative backlash against Disney's perceived woke agenda extends beyond Lightyear. Recent social media comments continue to frame Disney's creative choices in political terms. For instance, the casting decisions for the live-action Snow White remake sparked heated debates in March 2025, illustrating how Disney properties have become battlegrounds in broader cultural wars about representation. In March 2025, another incident added to Disney's challenges when a fire broke out in a walk-in cooler backstage at Epcot's France Pavilion, leading to the evacuation of Remy's Ratatouille adventure. Just days later, a Florida man was arrested for attempting to bring cocaine into Magic Kingdom, generating headlines that associated Disney World with illegal drug activity. As Disney navigates these multifaceted scandals, it faces the challenge of maintaining its identity as a family-friendly entertainment provider while addressing the increasingly diverse and sometimes conflicting expectations of its global audience. The controversies reveal a company at the intersection of changing social norms, technological vulnerabilities, and polarized political environments. Future plans leave fans wondering what next. As controversies continue to swirl around Disney, fans and industry insiders alike are curious about Chris Evans' future with the entertainment giant. Having portrayed both Captain America in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Buzz Lightyear in Pixar's Lightyear, Evans has been a significant presence in two major Disney franchises. However, his path forward with the company appears less certain than his past success might suggest. Speculation about Evans returning to the MCU as Captain America has been persistent since his character's emotional send-off in Avengers Endgame 2019. However, recent statements from the actor have consistently denied these rumors. In a January 2025 interview with People magazine, Evans firmly shut down reports of his return for Avengers Doomsday, stating simply, "That's not true," and noting that similar rumors resurface every few years since Endgame. This sentiment was echoed in an Esquire interview where he quipped, "Yeah, no, happily retired," when asked about reprising his role. Anthony Mackie, who has taken up the mantle of Captain America, confirmed in the same piece that Evans had not discussed returning, adding, "I talked to Chris a few weeks ago and it wasn't on the table then." These recent denials stand in contrast to earlier rumors from outlets like Collider in January 2021, which had suggested negotiations for at least one Marvel project, but these have not materialized into confirmed roles. The persistence of these rumors, despite clear denials, highlights the challenge actors face in controlling the narrative around their careers, particularly when attached to beloved franchise characters. Understanding Evans's original journey to becoming Captain America provides interesting context for his current stance. When asked how he got cast in the iconic role, Evans described it as a process filled with uncertainty.
Luck. They wanted me to come in and read, and I was a little apprehensive. It was a back and forth. It was a little bit of a dance. It was something I was really nervous about doing. And
he credits the support of Marvel executives and colleagues for helping him take the leap.
Luckily, there were really good people in my corner who kept nudging me. Kevin Feige and Robert and a lot of great people kind of talked me into it, and it's the best decision of my life.
This initial hesitation, followed by the career-defining success of his tenure as Captain America, may inform his current reluctance to return to the role. Having completed a satisfying character arc and moved on to other projects, Evans may be wary of diminishing the impact of Steve Rogers' farewell by returning for additional appearances. While the MCU door appears closed for now, another potential avenue for Evans' future with Disney lies in the Star Wars franchise. An ex-post from September 2019 shows Evans' interest in joining the galaxy far, far away, as he simply responded "me" to a query about MCU actors in Star Wars. Reports from Giant Freakin' Robot in June 2024, citing insider Daniel Richtman, indicated Disney had informal talks with Evans for an upcoming Star Wars project, likely a theatrical film under Kevin Feige's development. This potential Star Wars connection makes sense given Evans's previous collaboration with Rian Johnson, director of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, on the hit film Knives Out. Earlier reports, like one from Mickey in November 2020, also mentioned talks between Evans and Disney regarding Star Wars, but the lack of updates leaves this possibility in the realm of speculation. In terms of animation work with Disney, Evans' experience with Pixar for Lightyear was both a creative opportunity and a commercial challenge. The film's underperformance at the box office, losing Disney $106 million according to reports, may affect the likelihood of sequels or new Pixar projects involving the actor. While critics praised his performance, there are no indications of sequels or new Pixar projects involving him. When discussing his approach to voicing Buzz Lightyear, Evans revealed his respect for Tim Allen's original performance.
Well, it's nice to have what Tim did, because not only did he do it so well, and we all love him for what his performance was, but the character actually is. I mean, this is the human version of the toys.
He further explained his process.
This is an iconic role, but informed very much in part by what Tim did. Whatever this character is would have to be why Tim is the way he was. So you just kind of take his performance as a blueprint and just move upstream.
Evans also shared insights into the unique challenges of voice acting for animation.
Everyone always says, like, well, what was it like working with the other actors? You don't work with the other actors. You're in a booth by yourself. I didn't even meet half the actors until last night at the premiere. So it's a very isolating thing, and you really end up focusing extremely on the one string you're playing on, which is your voice.
Beyond Disney-specific projects, Evans' current career trajectory includes several non-Disney films. According to The Cinemaholic, as of March 30th, 2025, his upcoming projects include Honey Don't for Apple TV Plus and Red One for Prime Video, suggesting a focus on expanding his presence across different studios and streaming platforms. Evans' contractual status with Disney provides another piece of the puzzle regarding his future with the company. His past MCU contract, detailed in Cinema Blend from 2018, was for 6 films, extended for Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, but expired post-2019. Reports from 2021, like one from We Got This Covered, suggested a new contract for more projects, but these have not led to confirmed roles. Despite the uncertainties surrounding his professional relationship with Disney, Evans maintains a personal connection to the company and its properties. His visit to Disney World in January 2025, reported by Aliers.net, shows his continued affinity for the Disney experience as a fan, even as his future as a Disney actor remains unclear. When discussing his own inspirations and the figures who encouraged his career path, Evans credited his parents and local theater directors.
I mean, I'm very lucky. My parents were always really, really supportive. I had a couple good local theater directors. When I was a kid, you do community theater and kids theater and things like that.
As of May 4th, 2025, Chris Evans' future with Disney remains largely speculative. While he has denied returning as Captain America, the possibility exists given past rumors, but current evidence leans toward no return. Star Wars offers a potential new chapter, with talks reported but no confirmation. Other Disney projects, like Pixar sequels, are not in development for him. His career trajectory, as seen in upcoming non-Disney projects, suggests a focus outside Disney, but his expressed interest in Disney's expansive franchises keep the door open for future collaborations. For fans of Evans' work with Disney, whether as Captain America or Buzz Lightyear, the coming months and years will likely bring clarity regarding his next steps with the entertainment giant. Until then, the actor's firm statements about being happily retired from the MCU and his diversification into non-Disney projects suggest a career in transition, one that may or may not include future collaborations with the house that Mickey built. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.